How to generate SSH keys for Oracle Cloud. This is the topic I'm going to cover in this video. So first, let's understand what we are doing and why we are doing. So this video is part of our first activity guide, which is how to register for Oracle Public Cloud. So in that activity guide, we've covered one of the steps is how to generate SSH keys. Now this topic is applicable for you if you are trying to connect, or eventually if you will be connecting to the Linux machine. That could be for when you're creating a compute or when you're creating the database. So in order to connect to the Linux machine, whether it's a compute that you've created as part of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or you have created a machine as a part of database creation, or you have created a database which is a user managed database, and that database is running on a Linux machine and you get access to the Linux machine. So in order to connect the Linux machine, you don't use user ID and password. In fact, you connect using private and public key or keys to connect to that. So what happens is you have two keys, one, or you will be generating both the keys, which is SSH keys we call. One is called as public key and second is called as private key. Now, when you're creating a compute instance, or when you're creating a Linux machine, or when you're creating a database in Oracle Cloud, you are going to, or at the time of account or database creation or Linux machine creation, it's going to prompt you for SSH keys. So what you're going to do is you will have to provide the public key, so that public key will be uploaded on Oracle Public Cloud. Whereas you keep that private key, and when you connect to the compute machine, you're going to use that private key in order to connect to your compute. That's what happens in a nutshell. So this is what I'm going to show you how to do that. So you're going to create the SSH keys. Again, we've covered this in this guide, which is register for Oracle Cloud. This is the first guide that you must follow. So the first thing you should be doing is you are creating a SSH keys, and how you create SSH keys is using a utility called Puttigen. So using Puttigen, you can create this SSH public and private key. So first task I'm doing is you can go to any one of these URLs. We have uploaded a Puttigen for you. So click on this k20academy.com/Puttigen. And when you open this Puttigen, this is an executable that you get, and this is how the screen will look like. So in this tool, we are going to generate SSH key. So first, an important thing is make sure that your key is generated using SSH-2 RSA method. So select this and click on generate. When you click, you move your mouse in this area and it is randomly creating a private and public key. And whatever you are moving this mouse, this is what it's helping in order to create or generate a random number. So now what you see here, this is the public key. And now you can, and there'll be a private key as well. It's not shown to you, but you can click on save as a public key. Now, when you're saving this private and public key, or especially public key, you can pass a key passphrase, so that whenever anyone, let's suppose someone get hold of this private key, usually you don't share this private key with anyone. So you can protect that private key by a key passphrase which is known to you, or you can leave it blank. And if you leave it blank, when you're going to connect to this server using these SSH keys, you will simply, or the server is not going to prompt you for passphrase because there's no passphrase set. Now for security reasons, you should keep the passphrase because, but whereas in our case, we are building it for test environment. So we are not doing, or we are not keeping any passphrase. Now so that's for private key. So simply click on save private key, and it says, are you want to save this private key without a passphrase? And you say yes, save it without a passphrase. Now I've saved it using private key, and it will automatically save is at .ppk file. So on Windows machine, it's going to save it as ppk file. Click on save and then close the window. Now you need to also save the public key. Now what we have noticed is that at times when we save this public key directly from here, it creates problem for us. So what we can do is you can simply select from here on from top, right from SSH-RSA key till end, copy, open a notepad, paste this key from here. So make sure that you copy, the copy will start at SSH-RSA and will finish at RSA-key-something, and then file, save as. So when you're saving this, you save it as public key.pub or whatever name you want, but make sure you keep the extension pub, because in Oracle Cloud at most of the places it's expecting it on pub, and click on save. So click on save button here, and so once you have saved your public key and private key, your job is done. So just to do a quick recap, make sure that you save private key directly from here. You can give optionally a passphrase. We have not given it. While saving the public key, instead of saving it from here, you can simply copy it from here and paste it in a notepad. Make sure you use notepad. Don't use Word or any other tool apart from notepad. Then save it as whatever public key .pub, and you're good. So now we are going to use this public and private key in order to connect to a compute. And you're going to use these keys either in the module when we look at compute, or when we have the Linux machine created, or in the database again when the Linux machine is created. So let me show you first on how to or where to find a machine, which I've already done it. So I'm going to find a public IP or create a compute on a public IP. I'll connect to that server through PuTTY as utility or tool. So I'm on a compute now. If you look at, I'm on this cloud, I've already connected to compute. So in that compute, I have created a machine, and that machine was created on in a public subnet with a public IP. So here you can see that the public IP of this machine is this 10.61.30.147. So I'm going to use that in order to connect to the PuTTY. I've already created this compute, and when I was creating the compute, I used that SSH key. I'll quickly show you how I cover or where exactly I've used that SSH public key, but we'll cover this when we look at compute or when we create the database. So I'm clicking on create instance. And when I'm creating the instance, I'm creating or I'm giving the different details I've created as a Linux machine. And below that here, I'm saying choose the SSH keys. And when I was creating the file or when I was creating the compute, I selected this public key. So make sure that I use public key. I never provide, or we should never provide this private key to the on the Oracle public cloud. So I'll select the public key and make sure the extension is .pub because it expected .pub, and create your compute. So I've already created that compute, and I've already got that public IP to which I'm going to create or connect. So the next part is to see whether you can ping or you can telnet on that public IP, because it could be that you're blocked or IP port number 22 is not open. And in order, this is controlled by security list. Again, there'll be a separate, if you're watching this as a part of the training, you will see that under the respective training with respect to the security list. So I've done the 22 port number and 22 is open. So that's how I know that port number 22 is open. So now I'm going to connect to this through PuTTY. So I've opened the PuTTY at the back. Just type the IP address here and save it as net. For example, my public VM, and save. And then you go here under SSH and authentication and click here and go to browse. And this time I'm going to select my private key. So select the private key that you have created earlier. So make sure you select here private key. Again, go back onto the top here, session, save this connection and click on open. Now you will be logging in as user OPC. If you're connecting or if you picked up one of the default image, click OPC and then you're straight in using this public key that we uploaded and the private key I had on my machine. So this is how you use SSH public and private key. You generate the private key and public key using PuTTYgen, and then you connect to the environment. Thanks for watching this.